Hi, welcome. My name's Dr. Debbi Kooyman with liveyourlifefully.com, and I would like to talk with you a little bit today about guilt and the purpose of guilt. So first, all of our emotions have a purpose. As human beings, we're born with the capacity to experience a full range of emotions, from emotions that we consider more positive to emotions that we consider more negative. But again, as humans, we are born with all of these emotions inside of us and with the ability to experience and express all of these emotions. And all of our emotions are important, and all of them serve a purpose. And if we want to live a full and healthy life, it's really important for us to learn how to experience and express the full range of our emotions. We're not meant to only experience positive emotions. Negative emotions are part of, again, what we're born with and what is part of a normal, healthy, full life. And a lot of people who struggle because they don't want to experience the negative emotions. So they try to push those away or cut those off, and they only want to experience the positive emotions, but that's not how we work as human beings. Again, we're designed to experience both emotions. And when we try to cut off our negative emotions, Brene Brown in one of her talks, the way she put it is we can't selectively numb. So you can't selectively numb just the negative emotions. So if you try to numb, avoid, run away from, push away your emotions, you end up pushing all emotions away. So you try to push away the negative, you also end up pushing away positive emotions, and then you smush kind of your whole emotional life, and that creates a lot of problems for people. They're trying to push these away. They're also not experiencing happiness and joy and excitement and hope and all of those more positive emotions. So again, it's important for us to understand that all of our emotions have an important purpose and are there to tell us something and to teach us something. I like to think of emotions as data. So all of our emotions are data that tell us something important. And again, if we want to live full, healthy lives, it's important for us to take in all of that data and then use it and respond to it appropriately. So the purpose of the emotion of guilt is to tell us when we've done something wrong or something that's not okay. And the purpose of feeling the guilt is it provides an internal indicator to us that, something I just did wasn't okay. And then it's a painful emotion on purpose so that it helps us, it provides that motivation to not do that again. Because we don't want to experience guilt. It hurts when we experience guilt, and it's supposed to hurt because it's supposed to teach us, don't do that thing. That thing that I just did that caused me guilt, to feel guilty, I don't want to do that again. And so if we allow ourselves to feel appropriate guilt, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, if we allow ourselves to feel appropriate guilt, then our own beings will help us learn what's wrong or not okay for us to do. So important for you to learn how to experience your own guilt, to be able to be accountable for things that you do that may be hurtful to others, let's say, and then to learn how to adjust your behavior so that you're not doing things that aren't okay. Now, it's also important to let other people feel their guilt as well for the same reason. That it's important for others when they do something that's wrong or that's not okay to have that internal messenger say to them, hey, that's not an okay thing to do. This hurts when we do this, so let's not do that again. So that's the purpose of guilt and why it's important for us to learn how to experience and allow others to experience appropriate guilt. Now I'm talking about others because a lot of people feel bad if other people feel guilty. So, ooh, I don't want to tell them, that hurt my feelings because I don't want them to feel bad. But when we do that, we don't let them learn that that's not okay. And then a lot of times we're allowing people to do things that are hurtful to us as well. And that also isn't okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about appropriate versus inappropriate guilt. Because you might be hearing this and thinking of things that make you feel guilty and saying, oh, that's wrong, that's bad, I shouldn't do that. But unfortunately, sometimes we have inappropriate guilt. A lot of times this comes from being taught things that aren't true or aren't accurate. For example, maybe you grew up in a family that taught you it's not okay to cry, or it's not okay to be sad, or it's not okay to be angry. Now, those things aren't true and aren't accurate, but if you've grown up being taught that, you may feel guilty if you're angry at somebody, or you may feel guilty if you're feeling sad, or you may feel guilty or feel like you're being bad if you cry, let's say, or you're afraid, or some people are taught it's not okay to feel positive emotions, so they feel guilty when they feel positive emotions. And those messages that are inaccurate can create inappropriate guilt, where we feel guilty for things that aren't actually bad or wrong. And it can wreak all sorts of havoc. Again, a lot of people struggle because they've been taught things that aren't okay, and then they feel bad for things, or they've been taught things that the things they've been taught aren't right. And so they've been taught that things that are normal things, like anger and fear and sadness and crying, they've been taught those things are bad. And so what ends up happening is they push away, squish those emotions, but those are normal, healthy emotions. And as I talked about earlier, you can't squish and push those emotions away and not also end up squishing and pushing your positive emotions away. So important to try to learn how to distinguish between appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. And I wish I could give you some magic formula that this is where appropriate guilt lies and this is where inappropriate guilt lies, but unfortunately there's not a magic formula. And I know this is something I work with a lot with the people that I work with, is helping them distinguish between appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt, and teach them how to feel appropriate guilt and how to change and challenge messages that are teaching them to feel inappropriate guilt. Now, I can tell you what I just said, all of our emotions are built into us as human beings. They're normal. So if you have messages in your head, or a voice in your head, which is probably at this point your own voice, but if you have messages back there that are telling you it's not okay to feel something, it's not okay to be happy, it's not okay to be excited, it's not okay to be disappointed, it's not okay to be sad, it's not okay to be scared, it's not okay to cry, those are all inaccurate messages. And if you feel guilt for doing any of those things, that is most likely inappropriate guilt, which is also a secondary emotion. If you've watched my primary and secondary emotion videos, or if you want more information about those, you can go to those videos to learn more about the distinctions between the primary and secondary emotions. So, like I said, I wish I could give you a magic formula or something more maybe tangible to help you try to distinguish between primary and not primary and secondary, although they are primary and secondary, but between appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. But maybe something to try to pay attention to. Sometimes we can use logic. Sometimes I feel guilty for something that I didn't actually do, like on purpose or bad. There was one time that I accidentally, I totally didn't realize it, but got into the express lane at the grocery store and had more than 10 or 15 items, whatever it was. And I felt bad when the clerk said something to me, but I didn't actually do anything intentionally wrong. Like, it was an innocent mistake. So not something I really needed to feel guilty for, because again, it wasn't intentional. If I had seen that it was an express lane, I wouldn't have gotten in that line. Not a big deal. Like, we're human beings, we're not perfect, we make mistakes. So that might be something else that may be causing inappropriate guilt to be aware of, is, you know, if as a human being you do something, you know, you make a little mistake, it's not really a big deal. Sometimes we make innocent mistakes and it maybe hurt someone else's feelings, and there might be some appropriate guilt in that. Like, I might feel bad. Oh, I didn't mean, you know, I feel bad that I hurt your feelings, but that wasn't my intention. You know, I can apologize, you know, for making that innocent mistake, but I don't need to feel horrible about it or get into a lot of big emotions about that. And one other thought with that is, one of the most appropriate things to do when we feel guilty, well, there's two things. Once we recognize what we're feeling guilty for, and if we're able to identify, yes, this is appropriate guilt, then the first thing is to try to do our best to not do that thing that we feel guilty about. And if it involves somebody else, one of the most appropriate things is to apologize. So if you've hurt somebody's feelings and you've recognized it and you're owning it, you're being accountable for that, approaching that person and saying, I'm sorry, is really important. And not just saying a fake forced I'm sorry, but letting your genuine guilt that you can feel inside your body, letting that motivate you, you know, to feel regret, to feel remorse, and then allowing that to draw you towards the other person in apologizing and saying, I'm sorry. This is really a really important part of relationships, actually, because as human beings, we are not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt each other sometimes, a lot of the times not intentionally, and being able to acknowledge that and own that and go to the other person and say, you know what, I'm sorry. You know, I did this, whether intentionally or not, you know, there's different scenarios, but being able to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I think this is also super, super important as parents for us to be able to learn to do this with our children. To be able to own that we're human, that we make mistakes, and that sometimes we do things that aren't okay, and to model for them that that's okay to do, to teach them that that's okay, and, you know, to allow them to see us as human, and to teach them that it's okay to acknowledge their mistakes and to say sorry as well, I think is really important. And I don't think enough parents probably do that with their kids. Sometimes with guilt, we'll want to pull away, we'll want to run and hide because, oh my gosh, I feel bad that I did that. I would encourage you really, really to try to push through that. That's not an effective, appropriate way to handle guilt, is to run and hide. And if you're wanting or needing to do that, you might be feeling inappropriate guilt or inappropriate shame. So if you're feeling appropriate guilt and you want to run away, you know, try to acknowledge, yes, this is painful, yes, this is hard, but it's important for me to be, if I want to be healthy, to be able to acknowledge, own that, and to apologize when necessary. So just a little, I could talk all day about a lot of the things I talk about. There's a lot of stuff, certainly more that I could say about guilt, but I think that gives you hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of why we have guilt, what its purpose is, why it's important for us to allow ourselves and other people to feel guilt. Maybe some ideas of trying to separate out appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt, and then also some things that you can do when you feel guilty to allow yourself to feel that feeling and then do something with it. So thank you as always for watching. I hope you found this helpful. And of course, if you have any comments or questions, you're welcome to leave a comment in the boxes below, or you're welcome to email me directly at drkooyman@liveyourlifefully.com. Thanks.